we have the honor to speak to someone that has made a significant contribution to Howard University's athletics program. Today, we'll speak with one of the members of the 1973 wrestling class that is being inducted to the Hall of Fame this year, Steve Davis. Please welcome him to the Bison Break podcast. Hey, how you doing, Steve?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm extremely well. How's everything going?
Doing pretty good. Unfortunately, one of my fellow wrestlers, Festus Cameron, has come down with sounds like a bit of COVID, and he can't be with us today. But I'm sure when this airs, he'll be laughing by the end of it.
Well, I definitely appreciate you joining us today and joining us for a conversation. We're super excited to, be able to have these conversations with the Hall of Fame inductees for 2024, and to really celebrate the accomplishments that you and your fellow team had in that momentous season. So, just want to kick it off and kind of start off with just getting a little bit of background information, just so I can introduce everyone to you, and how did you grow up, and how did you come into looking at being inspired to be a wrestler?
Well, actually, I grew up in Edison, New Jersey, right off exit 10 on the turnpike going up. And in Edison, at that time, it was the 60s.
Okay.
The height of the Black Power movement, in the States. And I went to a school, Edison, New Jersey, and it's got two sections, and they redistrict my section. And I went to school in North Edison. The area that I lived in didn't have that many Black folks in it. Most of them lived in North Edison. I basically kind of lived in South Edison, and at the last minute ended up in North Edison. And
Wow.
While Jersey back at 60s, the mid 60s, there were no discrimination laws, but there also were no Black coaches and very few Black teachers in the high school. And like I said, it was at the height of the Black Power movement in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that it affected me as an athlete, I'm on a team with a bunch of white kids now.
Mm.
And
That's
it
tough.
was challenging. It was one of those things where I don't give him the ball unless he needs it, unless we're losing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of rough. My whole high school career was less than pleasant, because this was a time when there was, rioting going on and demonstrations in the school, and a few coaches that I had really never appreciated that.
Mm-hmm.
However,
but you had to be real mental tough to kind of do that, though.
Oh, yeah.
The fortitude to do that, because it's like you can't really run anywhere, you can't go anywhere. I mean, you kind of gotta deal with it head on. Like now, it's easier to be able to find things that distract you, but this is everywhere you're going. A part of life is kind of touching you in this moment,
Definitely. And back then, there wasn't too many places you can turn but yourself. And being new to North Edison, where I won't call it a ghetto, where there was government housing,
mm-hmm.
up to, it took a while before I was accepted as one of the crowd, which made it a little bit tougher, because I was getting it from both ends up there. He said, "Oh, you think you're white, and blah, blah, blah. Here you got a swimming pool, that sort of thing." And I got to the point where it says, "Yeah, I got a swimming pool because my mom knows who my dad is, and they both go to work every day, so I can put a pool in my backyard."
Wow.
If you got a problem with that, then, that's when the fight would start.
Right.
So it took a while to adjust, to my surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting. I had a coach there who was a new gym teacher, in the seventh grade. And we came in and we hit it off pretty well. He was a German Jew, Jewish people. And he was familiar with racism and discrimination, because that was one of the reasons why his people left Germany and came over here. And he was really interested in the civil rights movement here in the States. And the way he got me out to wrestling, he says, yeah, I know what's going on the football team, because by that team, most of the black kids wouldn't go out for the basketball team because they know they'd sit the bench the whole game.
Wow.
So they wouldn't even bother
This
going
is even in the 60s, though.
athletics.
Wow. Okay.
And what he did, and he came and he talked, and we talked, and he said, listen, the way that I'm going to run the team is you try out for the team, and well, you try out to wrestle. And if you want to wrestle at 136, and everybody who wants to be, wrestle for that week, we have wrestle-offs. If you win the wrestle-offs, you start. And that's the way I roll.
Wow.
And I said, well, I can deal with that, or maybe I could try. And basically, he ended up in the Sports Hall of Fame because not only was he a great educator, he was a coach before his time. Now, this is back in the 68 or so, and he was talking memory. He'd come in, he says, I read this book about muscle memory and yada, yada, yada,
Wow.
yada. And this is
what's this coach's name? What's this coach's name?
Loyson, Cliff Loyson.
Cliff Loyston. Wow.
Yeah.
So he was talking about the mechanics, the science of competing and just maintaining your physical prowess and developing your physical attributes back in the 1960s. And we're seeing that progressive movement now, but you're talking about back then. Wow.
Yeah. And what even made it so amazing is he never wrestled. So it was nose in the book. Okay, we're going to try this. Everything that you do with the right hand, you got to do with your left hand. So, you had to be ambidextrous. And he even had us doing yoga. Let's focus on what you got to do. And he used the Aikido as a reference to his wrestling style, because he'd use reflexes. If someone's pushing into you, the normal reflex of the body is to push back. If you grab somebody's hand and you pull it down, the natural reaction would be to pull it back. And what he would do is he would use that to set up the wrestling moves we call the duck under, which is grabbing my opponent's wrist and pulling it towards him. And the natural reaction for him would be to pull it back. And that's when I'd make a move to step in, go underneath the arm. And once I'm underneath the arm, step on his foot, pull him towards you, he's going to trip, and now we're on the mat.
Wow.
So that was the kind of execution that he would teach us, that actually would be an Aikido move, trying to use somebody's natural defensive reactions to your advantage. And it worked out well. In a matter of time, we had state champs on the team.
Okay.
And, so it worked, and I kept using that as a training method, and it worked. We had a couple of guys on the team that ended up being state champions, and it was a system that worked. Now, I wasn't really into wrestling in high school. I wanted to play football.
Right.
My love was track, and I can remember, when I started wrestling in 7th grade. It was like a novice tournament. I would win the tournament. 8th grade, I'd win the novice tournament. Then we got the high school. There were kids in the high school who had wrestled a while more than my weight, and they were state champions. So I was always practice against kids that were really good. But my heart was in playing football. That's what I wanted to do. And I could remember in my senior year when I guess all those folks who could beat me up, all the white kids that could beat me up, and wrestle, be state champions. It was my turn, but I wasn't really focused towards that. And I would tell the coach, hey, listen, the counties are this week, but I'm not going to do it because I've got an opportunity to go to visit some HBCUs. And coach wasn't upset with me. He looked at me and says, well, yeah, I can understand it, because I told him, coach, I want to go to a HBCU. I've had enough of this. I want to go to an HBCU. Because the high school I was going to at that time was about 900 kids, and close to 1,000, and maybe only 60 Black kids.
Wow.
in it. So,
so when you went to Howard, was it like a cultural awareness? I mean, a shaking for you, because now you're coming from an environment where it's predominantly white, 60 Black kids. Now you're going to a college where you are now the majority. I mean, what was it like to actually be engulfed? I mean, we're talking about, back in the 60s and 70s, but what was it like to kind of step into that environment? Because there's a lot of things going on in DC where Chocolate City and all this type of good stuff started really coming to fruition. How did that, what was that like for you stepping into that as a young kid coming from Jersey, coming down to DC, stepping onto the, the hollow grounds of Howard University?
Beautiful. Beautiful. Howard wasn't my first choice, though.
Wasn't
what
your
had
first
happened
choice.
is Willie Joe Hart was the only black coach I had up here in Jersey. Went to a black school in Virginia Union.
Okay.
And during that time, he took me and two other black youths down to a tour of HBCUs in Virginia. Okay. I went to Virginia Union and it was just like my high school, small place. This wasn't it. Went to Norfolk State. I said, yeah, it's okay, but and I went to Hampton and fell in love. Beautiful sceneries there. Cute girls came up and, hi, who are you? Blah, 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 this and blah, 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 that. Now, the coaching wasn't that great.
Almost swayed you just a little bit. They almost swayed you just a little bit.
Yeah. And it was funny. So I said, well, I want to play football. Well, we can't give you a scholarship now, blah, 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 blah. And that wasn't really on my mind. I said, yeah, well, I'm coming here. And at the time, I had a cousin who was at Howard Law School, and she actually, went to Howard, was a majorette. And she said, Steve, you signed any papers yet? I said, no. I said, well, wait a week. Okay. I said, a week for what? I'm going to set you up, and I want you to go to Howard. I said, all right, Bernadette, and she called me in a week, and she set up where I'd come down there for 3 days. I stayed at Slow Hall, and the first day I walked around campus. I said, yeah, this is different. I like it. It's city, right in the middle of campus. And I could adjust to this. And then I came to talk to the coach. And Coach Cease was the head coach at the time, and he was in the hospital.
Okay.
And Coach Organ walked into the room, kind of busy, and he sat down across from me. And they explained, I'm not the head coach, and I'm going to tell you right now, I can't authorize any scholarships, and yada, yada, yada. So I'm sitting there saying, it was a waste of my time. I come in here, I can't even talk to the head coach here. And so we started off with, you're too small to play football here. And blah, 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 blah. And at that point, I got up, took my hand out, said, Coach, I know you're busy, man. I won't take any more of your time up here, but I heard I'm too small before. And I'm going to look forward next year when Howard plays Hampton, because I'm playing for Hampton. And thank you very much for your interview. Turned around and I walked out. I got, I think, halfway to Cook Hall, and I felt somebody pulling my coattail. I turned around, the coach told me, like, young man, we're not finished with our interview yet. All right, coach, I'm sorry. I came back and I sat down. It was a little embarrassing. So he sat down, and all the time he's laughing. He's laughing at me. What's he laughing at here?
The goals of this young man, right?
But he's laughing. He said, did anybody tell you how many football games Hampton has won in the last 3 years? I said, no. He said, they won about 3. I said, well, coach, they need me. They need me down there. And he started laughing. And right away, he started talking about wrestling. And he knew everything I had did. He said, yeah, in 7th grade, you won this title. And then here in 8th grade, you won that title. And you skipped wrestling in the counties because you wanted to go to a HBU tour. Is that right? And I'm sitting there and I'm saying, yeah. I said, well, coach, how do you know all this? He says, well, your coach wrote me a personal letter. Wow. And, yada, yada, yada. So we sat there and we started talking, and he said, I think this is the place for you.
Wow. He
says, I'm willing to give you a scholarship to wrestle here. And you don't have to make up your mind right now. You go home and talk to your parents and you think about it. And I said, okay. And went home and made my mind up because Bernadette told me if I didn't go to Howard, she'd kill me.
Yeah.
And, and she wasn't playing. And that's how I wrestled at Howard. And it was amazing.
Wow.
I really fell in love. I played in high school. I lettered in 4 sports and was captain of the football team and, the track team. but it was a totally different story wrestling for Howard.
Mm.
Totally different atmosphere. I loved it.
So
And
tell me about your team, the 1973 team, because this team we're inducting into the Hall of Fame. Tell me what made this team so special, because I definitely hear a lot of passion from you, and I can imagine what you were able to bring to the team. But what made the team overall? I mean, we're inducting the whole class. What made them so special?
to
What
tell you,
made
the
this?
wrestling team rolling up to 73 was great. To be honest with you, the 73 team was like being in a Spike Lee movie.
Wow.
Audacious, it was dramatic, it was intense, and it was the big fun. I mean, if you didn't have any swag, that wasn't the place for you. And it started out in my freshman year. First, it was a struggle to start because we did have a bunch of talent. There were guys from Pennsylvania, which is a big place for wrestling. Ohio was a big place for wrestling. California, Southern California, Bakersfield,
Mm-hmm.
and people from Georgia, and a couple of folks from Florida. So it was a multi-cile, a mixed up bag as to what, people were relying on the strength move. There were people here who were really good wrestlers and could probably wrestle in the Ivy League school coming in as a freshman. And it took me half the season to break into the lineup.
Wow.
And the big difference was, when you're in high school and the team, people would whisper behind your back and they talk about you behind your back and this and that. It wasn't like that on the Howard wrestling team. Any of my teammates had anything to tell me, they got up in my face, and that's how it rolled.
I love it.
And
Yeah.
and I could appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I was very lucky because there was a guy, his name was Sammy Rucker. First of all, the other thing about the Howard wrestling team, it's got a 90% that stretch there with Coach Oregon. 90% of the wrestlers at Howard graduated.
Man.
And
Excellent.
I was probably the dummy on the team because most of them, my teammates were in 5-year curriculums. They were in architect, the School of Engineering.
Mm-hmm.
They ended up in den school, lawyers. So there basically weren't any really dummies on the team, who were just athletes and were not cerebral.
Mm-hmm.
So it was different of what they say, be careful for what you ask for, what you pray for, because that's what I got, and a whole lot of icing and candles on that birthday cake. It was amazing. My teammates up in my face all the time. If you didn't talk smack, you didn't belong here. Even the guys who never wrestled before would come in and try to make the team talk and stuff. You slam them a few times and they'd get up and look at me. Yeah, Davis, you got me today. You kicked my butt today. But I'm going to get you tomorrow because you can't do this every day and blah, 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 blah. And
so it was almost like
wouldn't
iron
have
was
it any
sharpening
other
iron.
way.
Like iron was sharpening iron pretty much every day. It was like you were using that motivation to kind of take you to the next level. And the direct, you don't want to be the person that continuously getting beat all the time. Sooner or later, you want to be the person that is achieving it,
Yeah, but not only that, the guys who were getting beat got up and said, okay, you got me today, but it ain't over. It ain't over. They'd be talking stuff leaving the gym.
There you go.
And it was amazing. At first, when I walked in there, it was kind of hard to blend in, but there was a wrestler by the name of Rucker, Sammy Rucker. He was from Bakersfield, California, and he was awesome. And he, I guess, originally came out there as a football player, but it didn't work out for him. And there was a lot of friction between him and the football team. And, he was the only person I know at Howard that was on academic probation because he got into too many fights. And he came in there and where you from? You the new rookie that's on the team? And, yeah. Can you wrestle? Yeah. And I would work out with him, and what he would do is, it was amazing. in my freshman year, James Walker was captain of the football team. He was also a wrestler, and he was from Newark. And they would be talking stuff. He was and he didn't like my style of wrestling, because what I do is I'd go out there and I'd take an opponent down like about 3 times, and more or less showing off, or either not trying to pin people right away, because that wasn't my strength. And then on the 3rd time I would take them down to get a back exposure, start getting back points, or try to pin them. And Rucker was in love with my style of wrestling. He said, Steve, I like that, but you're kind of weak on your conditioning. And after practice, we would work. And he was huge. He was unlimited. And what we would do is we would mock wrestling. I would do a move and he would shadow it. And we'd keep this up for about 10 minutes. And he was amazing, because he was about 190 pounds, but he moved just as quick as I could. And I was wrestling at like 136, 140. And it was amazing. And he talked more smack. The whole time he would be wrestling, he would be talking. But it didn't occur to me, he's talking all that mess because he was trying to improve his conditioning. So basically he told me, talk while you're wrestling. You keep doing that, because that'll build up and help your endurance, because your endurance just stinks, and yada, 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 yada.
Oh, man.
Yeah, just like he was from Compton, So it was amazing. And I learned there was a lot of guys on the football team who would have came out for wrestling. But Sam talked so much stuff and got so many disagreements, I'll call it. And Junior Walker was a great wrestler on the team. And him and Sam, they couldn't wrestle each other because it would end in a fist fight.
Wow.
So that's what it was like wrestling on the team. That's how much swag we had on the wrestling team. Basically, besides the soccer team, at Howard, which was off the chain with world-class athletes, I call them, because those guys could have went to the Olympics. The guys on the wrestling team were good athletes. They were those who couldn't wrestle as well, but you couldn't tell them that, because they bring you out on the mat and show you, and if they got beat up, you're about this close from getting into a real fight. So that's basically what it was. To me, like I said, it was like a Spike Lee movie. There was always some kind of drama going on, and you talk to my girlfriend and this and that. And but when we went anywhere, it was true teammates.
Right, right. I can imagine. Like it's like the whole family. I could talk about them, but you can't talk about them.
Exactly. Exactly. I can kick his butt, but
right.
Let me hear about you giving him, and there was Rock Newman was out there then, and
oh,
Glenn,
wow. Okay.
Professional talkers, black talkers, on TV. And
well, what I'm thinking about now. I mean, on November 1st, we have the actual Hall of Fame induction ceremony and banquet that day. What's it going to be like for all you guys to be in the room together, to have this, to celebrate, be honored, one, but two, also just to be in fellowship with one another, because, it sounds like you guys are really a tight group. And, and I can just only imagine what the conversations would be like at the banquet too.
Yeah, it would be this. I've been at the 3 of the Hall of Fame dinners, and I've seen how they go. But and one of my teammates, my co-captain, got inducted. I think the last 2 ones, and he was saying, "Steve, come on, you can do Hall of Fame." And at that point, Coach Oregon was no longer at Howard, and there was some scuffle between him and the athletic director. And when he left, I was a Coach Oregon-ite at the time.
Absolutely, I get it.
To this day, I tell him he's still the most positive role model I've had in my life.
Wow.
And to this day, he still is. And I said, if you look at it, he won 8 conference championships in a row. He was able to recruit just the right players who fit in, a puzzle. And unlike my high school coach, he wasn't adept at wrestling styles and teaching new moves. But what he did teach there was life skills. you know, and pride and working out. He was more into the physical aspect of wrestling. And it worked out. Like I said, from 60, I think it was 66 to 73, we won 8 consecutive wrestling championships.
That's phenomenal.
You know, he was able to recruit the right people in there and push the right buttons to keep things working. So, like I said, to me, it was like being in a Spike Lee movie. There was drama every day, and I had to bring the best of what I had to practice, because if I didn't, my teammates would let me know. You know?
What does it mean for you and your team to be inducted into the Hall of Fame?
Great. You know, it's great. They're excited. And a lot of guys, like I said, I can't say me actually, the experience was really good. And then after, okay, well, now I got to focus on my law practice. You know, so they didn't come back as much as they should have. Like, for example, I haven't seen Junior Walker since he walked off Howard University campus, and he was in Newark. You know, it was kind of hard to catch up with him. And Artie Cox was the first one to be put in the Athletic Hall of Fame for wrestling. And Artie was, me and Artie came in as freshmen, and in our sophomore year, we were captains of the wrestling team. And yeah, so going back, it'll be good. There will at least be 10 of us that'll be returning. There were 16 people on the roster, and at least 10 of us will be going back.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of mentioned about going back to Howard University, and you know, one of the things with the Bison Express is we are one of the supplemental arms for Howard University athletics, and really trying to help our student athletes with, you know, different things that they may need, and doing fundraiser activities, and helping with different purchases of maybe uniforms or meals or things along that line, or helping them travel. What is for you? What is the importance of giving back to Howard University, particularly the athletics program, or even the Bison Express and the work that we do here?
I think it's great. Bruce Williams, who is the chairperson of the Bison Express, I knew him when we stepped into campus the same time, and he was from Cardozo High School, so he had that Cardozo swag on the football team.
Straight from DC. You know how DC folks are.
He tickles me to this day. He said he really wanted to come out for the wrestling team, but he walked in there and he saw how we were slamming each other around the car. That
sounds like Bruce, though.
He did a wonderful job. When I first met him, we didn't speak to each other that much on campus. You know, we'd say hi and, you know, pass it. And that would be about it.
Right.
And he's a fantastic Howard Stewart, to tell you the truth. I forgot he worked for a Fortune 500 company. He spent a few years in Japan, I believe it is. And now he's like a diamond. He's just smooth and polished. And he's doing a great job. They were talking about how they were able to help fund the women's volleyball team to a trip to Nigeria and Africa. And that is just wonderful. That's a dream come true, to be able to reach back and to pull something off like that. It's great. You know, it's great. I've got all the kudos in the world for that. You know, we talk every now and then, but it's nothing to the conversations we had when we first knew each other. And that'd be it. You know, so I believe all those folks in Bison Express are doing one heck of a job.
Absolutely.
It was, and Bruce, he told me he's going to have Camilla there to give us our awards for the wrestling team, you know, before she becomes president. And,
wow. There you go. We'll see. There you go.
You know I'm joking, right?
I know it.
But, you know, I tease Bruce about that. But I think they're doing a wonderful job, you know, with the Bison Express. And yes, I am a member, and plan on donating, because I think these guys are really putting their money where their mouth is and doing a great job at doing that.
Yeah. Well, last question I have, just to wrap things up. If someone was interested in getting into wrestling, or looking at the sport and wanting to join, what advice would you give them regarding wrestling, or even contemplating trying to be a wrestler?
It's a sport that it is becoming not as popular as it should be. Leave the Roman Greco wrestling alone. We had one gentleman on our team, was Sari Mahmoud. He was from Takhan, Iran,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a different style of wrestling. Most of the guys who wrestle came in from DC, the ones who were on the team. And they believe it was what you see on television with the Hulk Hogan and the stuff. It's not like that
Right.
at all. It's a great sport once you get into it, because if you were kind of smaller athlete like I was, at a good day, I told people that I was 5'7" because I was only 5'6", and you wrestle per weight class.
Right.
And who's in your weight class. And to get off, physical strength helps a lot, but also conditioning and speed works a lot. If you're at the size where coaches are telling you, well, we can't use you on the team because you're not big enough or you're not fast enough. But if you have coordination skills, that's the place. Wrestling is a place for you to be able to pull that off. There aren't that many great wrestling coaches, like I said, that I had growing up. But Morgan State still has a wrestling team. One of my biggest regrets at Howard is the year before my son attended Howard, the wrestling team and the baseball team, two of the most talented teams on Howard's campus, were cut to make way for a women's sports team. Now, I'm not mad at the women for having their sports team, and I do understand it. But wrestling is a great sport. It's mano y mano. If you look in the Bible, it's the only sport that has a reference to it in Genesis. They talk about how Abraham was out one night, and there's the angel tapped him on the shoulder and says, "Look, God do this, and God, I want you to do that."
All night.
And then he says, "And I'll catch you later." And he said, "No, you're not going anywhere." And they started wrestling because he wanted to get blessed, and put him in a headlock. And the angel dislocated his hip. And so it's the oldest sport in history. You can wrestle with angels if you're good enough.
That's the best advice to give them?
That's my advice. It's an older sport. They wasn't playing golf or tennis back then. Put somebody in the headlock if it feels good to you. Start wrestling.
You might lose a hip, but it's all right.
Yeah.
I get it. Okay. Well, definitely thank you for joining us today. We definitely appreciate you, just talking about the 1973 team. We are honored that they are going to be inducted in, and we are happy to, be able to welcome them to the Hall of Fame. And thank you for your time today, and we definitely appreciate it, Steve.
Thank you. No problem. It was great talking to you, Rob. And I look forward to meeting you and hearing the podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for watching the Bison Break podcast. We want to thank our guest, Steve Davis, for joining us today. Also, we want to congratulate the entire 1973 wrestling class for Howard University in their induction to the Hall of Fame. Be sure to check us out at bisonexpress.org, or you can follow us on your favorite social media channels at Bison Express. My name is Rob Black Jr., and I'll check you out on the other side of your goals.